Here's a serious question that I wanted to ask, and hopefully someone out there might have also thought this question. But at what point will we, the people, demand better understanding and clarification into the term given to us by this current administration, even during its previous administration, of some details, preferably names or anything really that would better help us understand exactly who the deep state is. And then the other term that was also introduced, known as the swamp. That's something that's on my mind right now because I'm like, this current moment, we're in the midst of a second term, 3 weeks in now, and outside of hitting the ground running and a boatload of executive orders, as well as lots of noise wanting to take over foreign land and everything in between, still never receive what I would deem as extremely important. And it has everything to do with who exactly are those characters that he has always labeled as his enemy. And so to this point, the only thing that has been given to us is the obvious. The previous administration, the Biden regime, him poking fun at Hillary during his first campaign, promising to do an investigation into her. But then once he was elected, she became an admirable and noteworthy stateswoman who has a very prominent role in the great job our government has done. Just paraphrasing what he spoke about her once the campaign was over. And so here we are now into his second term. And so from 2017-ish to today, 2025, that's a good length of time to where we still haven't gotten any real clarification as to who the deep state or the swamp is. And so the reason I put forth that question is because that's one of many questions I have that seems to get passed by, swept under the rug. There's been no demand by the MAGA crowd or the other side of the aisle either to better understand who these enemies are that have subverted and perverted and destroyed our country. And so now we have the Doge branch of government, I guess. It's not official, but it's acting as if, exposing all types of corruption and crime that is shocking on the surface because these numbers and where the numbers have, where the funds have gone are quite alarming. But yet, once again, there's been no names outside of some small journalists, as well as NGOs and institutions and newspaper sources and things like that that received the funds. But who up top was authorizing all those funds to be dispersed? Those are some names that will be worth discussing. And forgive me if if those names have come out, but because they were not mainstream frontline news headline stories, that's another reason why. Like, wouldn't people really want to know who these characters are? And so I come from the side of the skeptical approach of knowing that whatever names will be given, if there are any, they're the puppets. They're the ones that were chosen to be sacrificed to the mainstream media, and the ones that will take the blame or take the fall as far as the media scrutiny, whatever that is that does come. And so here we are now into the second term. Nobody cares who the swamp is. No one cares who this deep state is. And I guess his fight continues on while also adding all types of new, I guess, mandates or policies into his presidency, such as make Israel great again, and then now wanting to remove the Palestinian people from Gaza so that the U.S. can use that as an asset. And then those are just what comes to mind now. But back to the point of the deep state in the swamp. Do you care to know who they are? Beyond just the front men who act on behalf of the people behind them, the people at the top that controls the strings. That is something I would love to know. And due to the nature of all this political theater that we're witnessing, where we've been given this illusion that the left and the right are two different ways of operating, but yet we always end up in the same direction: more debt, deficit, and destruction. And so once again, like, I'm going to be very critical of this current administration just because outside of figures being given to us, there's been no tribunals, no persecutions or prosecutions, rather, no like new names or families for that matter being brought to the forefront as a part of this body or whatever, however you want to categorize these entities, as I call them. I take it from the side of spiritual warfare first and foremost. So I would associate those unknown names and families and hierarchies of power. I equate them and associate them with what the Bible would prefer to use the term as principalities and powers, those that are beyond touchable for us mere men and women. But just had a question I wanted to put out there. Who is the deep state? Does it matter? Will we ever find out who the swamp is? My guess would be we will not. I just would find it very hard to believe that we would ever find out who is the person or family or the round table of individuals that have collectively come together to make all of these decisions that has resulted in the world being the way that it is. And so that's just a question that I wish the MAGA crowd, his supporters, would press him on, especially during an interview or something like that, for him to be more specific. Can you give us something that we don't know would be the question. So if I was interviewing Trump, I would ask him a question, simply put, you mentioned a lot about the deep state, Mr. President, as well as the swamp. Now you're on your second term, and you were able to get through your first term because you had the Russian hoax, you had all the other distractions that were thrown your way, which kept you occupied so that you didn't have to necessarily continue with the same rhetoric that got you elected. But here we are now in your second term. Out of curiosity, can you give us more details as to who these individuals are that you refer to as the deep state, also as a swamp? Are they the same, or are this like the deep state is like the CEOs of the entity, and the swamp are the puppets that pull this, that call the shots? Are there tiers to this? And can you elaborate more and perhaps even give us a name or two of individuals that are probably calling the shots so that we as a people can have a better understanding of who's operating not in our best interest? And if you were to give that information, what are you going to do about them? Then I would have a long pause and I would sit there and just wait. And you better believe that'll be the last question I ever get a chance to ask the president, because if it's an interview, he's immediately going to walk around that and downplay it and say Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Obama. He's going to bring up Obama because these are all three front faces, pawns that are put in front that we know about. And then he'll mention some things that they did and how he inherited this mess that we're in and how it's his job to make America great again. And so he's going to, I believe that's where it will go, because that's a concept known as double speak. And I just was introduced to that from a short little YouTube reel where someone wrote a book highlighting how double speak is one of the most prominent methods used in politics and in business, because they can either state a question, address a question, or give you a question and talk all the way around it and never hit on the primary explanation in the center, but give you everything you need to distract you, which would get you to draw out your second question without you even answering the first one. It's genius. So the power of language goes a long way. But anyway, this is a question I have. Does this question cross your mind, or has it ever? And is it even important at this current moment? Is it relevant? Who cares? Do you care? Is this something that we, the people, should continue to inquire about, or should we just dismiss it and move on to the next question we have? So I have a lot more questions to give. Let's start with this one. What do you think? Drop a comment down below. Let me know. Curious Minds wants to know in the comment section.